Hey everybody, welcome back to the second part of painting this Pomeranian. Let's just jump right into it. Today I'm going to be covering the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. The first thing that I like to do is cover the area that I'm going to be working on, which I always like to start in the eyes. I'm going to be putting a thin layer of Liquid Original over the entire eye. It's called oiling it out. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do a mix of burnt umber and ultramarine blue and get a nice dark color. Make sure you keep it more to the blue side, and that'll give you more of almost like a black. And I'm going to go around the eye, and what this does is it gives me that depth that I'm looking for in this dog's eyes. It'll make the eyes look like they're set back in the head, and that's what you want. And now I'm just making a glaze of burnt umber only, which how you do a glaze is you just get some burnt umber or whatever color it is that you're using, and you mix it with a lot of medium. And it's transparent. You'll be able to see the underpainting that we did in the first stage underneath this layer, but it will give a little bit more depth to the painting. Now I'm just adding a little bit of highlights that I see in the eyes. And all I did here was I took a little bit of white on a dirty brush that I just used with the burnt umber, and I applied that to the areas in the eye where the light is actually coming through. And I'm just continuing these steps and making sure that I'm getting everything. I lost a little bit of the darkness there in the eye, so I'm putting that back in. And now I'm going to look at the whites of the eyes, and they're never white, so they're usually a color of gray. So I just mixed a little bit of white and black and got a gray for that color. Now I'm looking at those highlights there in the eye. And for this, I did a mix of white with ultramarine blue and put a little bit there in the eye. And then I'll add those final highlights in the next stage. But for now, that'll do. It marks the area of where I actually want to put those highlights. Now, this is the only time that I'll actually use black. I put black in the center of the eye for the pupil. And I'll actually use it in the nostrils again later. But for now, this is where I will only use black. And now I'm going in and lighting up those areas with just a little bit more white there in those highlights. I'm paying attention to where at the bottom of the eye, when you have water reflecting from the eye, it's almost white. So make sure that you're paying attention to that little water line going at the bottom and the sides of the eye. It'll really help to make your portrait look realistic. So it's just something to be aware of when you're painting an animal's eyes. Now I'm moving on here, and I'm adding a little bit of burnt umber with no medium mixed in, just to darken up those areas that have kind of gotten lost when I added that white in. All right, I think that looks good for the eyes. That's just the blocking in of the color. So I'm going to move on to the nose. And here I'm doing another glaze of burnt umber all over the entirety of the nose. Now with this dog, Coco, she actually had quite a bit of purple and pinks in her nose. So make sure that you pay attention to the colors that you actually see. A thing that I like to do is I have some art software that I use for digital art, and I will put the reference photo into that software, and I'll use the eyedropper tool to see what those colors actually are, because sometimes our eyes will play tricks on us and we don't know what those colors are. So I've mixed a little bit of ultramarine blue and a little bit of alizarin crimson to give me those purples that I'm seeing in the dog's nose. Now, depending on whether it goes a little bit more to the red side, I'll add a little bit more red. If I add a little bit more blue, it'll make it a little bit darker for those shadow areas. And for the highlights, I actually just added a touch of white to that mixture of the pink and the ultramarine, or not the pink, I'm sorry, the alizarin crimson with the ultramarine blue, and added a little bit of white, and that's what I use for my highlights. As you see here, I'm getting around those nostrils. Whenever I put the black in for the nostrils and having those highlights right there, it's going to really make those highlights pop, as you'll see in a little bit. And here I go, I'm dipped into my black, and I'm just putting the shape in for those nostrils. And as you can see, it really made those highlights pop as soon as I put in that black for those nostrils. Adding in a little bit more highlights. And to make it stand out a little bit more brighter, I just added a little bit more white. But be careful, because when you use white, it can get chalky really fast on your painting, and you do not want it to look chalky. So gradually build up those colors. Constantly going back and forth with your reference photo. And she has a nice dark line there at the bottom of the nose. Make sure that you pay attention to that, because a lot of times they'll have the dark going all the way around the bottom part of the nose. Just reshaping the nostril there a little bit. I felt like it was a little bit too small, so I had to fix that. Now, I'm not looking to get my darkest darks and my lightest lights in this stage. I'm just blocking in the colors that I see, but not my darkest and not my lightest. Just kind of that mid-tone range is what I'm looking for in this part of the painting. Just adding a little bit more details, a little bit more highlights there at the top of the nose. And now I'm just smoothing out there around the edges. So when I go on to work on the actual snout of the dog, it's already blended out, and I won't have that harsh line to try to fight with in the next stage. All right, now the nose is good for now. I'm going to move on to the mouth area. I started off with the tongue because it's so easy to see those really dark shadows on the inside of the mouth. So for that, I used just that burnt umber and ultramarine blue mixture, and I put it a little bit more to the blue side because it'll give me that almost black look. Now I'm just marking out the teeth. I don't want those to get lost. Now on the inside of the mouth there, it's pretty dark, but it's actually the inside of I guess you could say like the lip area. It's not the gum, so make sure that you're paying attention to that whenever you are painting. Now for the lip area, I'm putting a light wash of the ultramarine blue with a lot of alizarin crimson. And that's just going to kind of put it a little bit to the purple side, but more to the reddy pinky side. And I'm just putting a glaze of that because I want the burnt umber that I put in the first stages to show through. And it'll give a very nice, natural look to the dog's lips. Now, as you see, there's a really nice highlight there on the lip. Make sure that you don't paint over something like that when you're doing the lips, because that shine is really going to make the mouth stand out. And you want the center of the mouth to be the focal point. And the center of the face, not just the mouth, I'm sorry. the eyes and the nose and the mouth. That's why I like to do this separately, because I feel like it is so important to just focus on the center of the dog's face. Now for her teeth, she actually has pretty white teeth. But the thing is that when you're doing a dog, their teeth are never white, just like with a person. Their teeth are not white. So I put in a light layer of gray on top, and then I'm going to start adding in a little bit more white slowly to add in those highlights on the teeth. But I actually used a gray but for the teeth, I actually used the burnt umber and ultramarine blue mixture and just added a little bit of white. And when you do that, it gives you a really nice natural looking gray color. And I'm just paying attention to my reference photo where those shadows and highlights are. And for this part of the painting, I mainly used a flat #2 for the entire painting. I just kept cleaning the same brush over and over and over. It's the smallest brush that I actually have. I think I might have a 0, but I believe that this is a #2 flat is the smallest brush that I have. And it worked fine. You get that nice, sharp, chiseled edge that you really need to do this type of painting with this small of a face of a dog. Now notice that underneath the tongue, I didn't have those shadows quite dark enough, so I'm going back in with just that dark mixture of the ultramarine and the burnt umber and getting in those darks. I'm just going back and forth between my reference photo and adding in darks and lights. Sometimes when you put in the painting, you may lose some of those shadows that you originally put in, so you have to go back and adjust constantly. And that's it for the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and please consider subscribing if you enjoy what you see, and I will see you in the next video.